Hello, everyone, and welcome to GreenBiz Studio. My name is Jim Giles. I'm VP for Net Zero here at GreenBiz Group, and I have with me Elizabeth Sturcken, who's a Managing Director at EDF. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, Jim. Great to be here.
So, Elizabeth, we know that just over 60% of Fortune 500 companies have now made emissions commitments of some sort by 2050. But of course, commitments are just one thing. Now they have to implement those commitments. And I know you're doing some great work at EDF that's trying to help them get better at that. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
The imperative to act now and have emissions by 2030 has never been greater. Companies have the tools that they need to act now. EDF led a project with Deloitte to show companies how to turn net zero pledges into actions. That's our Pathways to Net Zero suite. And included in that is an interactive guidance tool that really helps companies set priorities. We are in this decisive decade for action, and we're following up that Pathways report with a series on innovation and the innovation imperative to get through that net zero gap. So it's not just enough to join the ranks of the companies who've set goals, Jim. There are many of them, as you know, but we really need to figure out what to do, and the need to act is massive and urgent. So basically, we will only succeed if we get companies to join us on this journey right now.
That's great to hear. And in terms of getting companies to join us, they now have some significant new incentives. The largest climate bill in US history just passed. We're seeing significant action at the state level in California and New York and other states. Tell us a little bit about how this can help companies as they move towards hitting these targets.
Yes, as you mentioned, it is the largest climate bill in US history. And I'm tremendously excited about this and indeed relieved that the government has stepped up and not left it all to companies, because the companies need help with infrastructure and investment and rules of the road. Collectively, these bills, it's the infrastructure bill, it's the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act, those collectively create 1.5 trillion in new market opportunities through tax incentives and so on. So we've heard that the global clean energy market alone is expected to reach $23 trillion by the end of the decade. You know, that really makes it clear that climate is the biggest business opportunity of our generation. So companies need to be looking at this legislation through the lens of a real opportunity and how to maximize that opportunity. So we'll see whether they rise to the challenge.
It's so exciting, the scale of the opportunity now. But we know, talking of rising to the challenge, we know that if you add up all the commitments that have been made by governments and companies, we're still not on track to hit that 2 degrees target, let alone the 1.5 degrees targets, which is what we should really be aiming for. So, Elizabeth, tell us, let's get concrete here. Tell us a couple of things that companies could be doing right now to accelerate progress.
Well, it's really 4 words. It's measure, learn, act, and report. And I don't want companies to get hung up on that first one. It is really important to measure and benchmark and figure out where your emissions lie. But that should not dissuade companies from figuring out how to act now. They need to not spend all their time on measurement and reporting. So in addition to the Pathways to Net Zero series from EDF, I would also like to highlight that We Mean Business and Exponential Roadmap just launched their SME Climate Hub in the US. That's focused on small and medium-sized enterprises and the small businesses who really need help in getting going on this journey. I think that's a really exciting tool. Clearly, we need every single company to support state, federal, local climate action, all the climate laws in particular. Ensure that that demand signal within the company comes from the C-suite with dedicated oversight and regular accountability. That is how you get it going exactly in the business. Building it into the core of the business is critical to results. Of course, engaging employees, customers, and certainly suppliers is super critical for us to be able to achieve net zero as a planet. I expect to see a lot of competition for climate leadership in the years ahead. And honestly, I think if you wait, your company will be left behind. Employees want to work for a company that is far ahead, and investors want to see that too. So I think we're all competing for leadership now.
Yeah, and I'll just pick up on that point you said about companies being left behind. If you talk about this area for any length of time, someone's going to jump in and accuse a particular company of greenwashing. And whatever you feel about that term, it's certainly true that some companies are leaders and others are laggards. How do you distinguish from the two? What sort of marks out real progress, and what is the kind of commitment that gives you cause for concern?
Yeah, that is a great question, Jim. And I just see increased scrutiny and accountability for companies all around. So a really clear benchmark is if your company is spending more on PR than they are on the actual sustainability program, that's a real sign that you're not invested. Some of the things I was just talking about driving sustainability into the core of the business are really what I see as meaningful. It's budget, it's accountability, governance, responsibility in the business lines for executing. And I think those are some of the key measures, in addition, frankly, to results. So the problem with that is it's going to take a while to get going for many, many companies. So really, we need to look at those measures in the interim, not just having a long-term goal, but some interim and very clear targets that companies are meeting. That's a clear sign of progress, real progress, instead of greenwashing.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for talking us through these issues with such clarity and for sharing your insights. We really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll be back here or one of our events pretty soon talking about these issues because they are so critical. But just for today, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.